Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Placerville Planning Commission for Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. We'll start with a call to order and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Friend.
Here.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Here.
Member Lepper.
Here.
Member List.
Here.
Member Raines.
Here.
Thank you. The chair notes that we not only have a quorum, but we are in the position to take action on such things as bylaws and election of officers. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposition? Hearing none. Item 1, consent calendar, adoption of the May 21st, 2019 regular minutes. Move approval of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 2 is not applicable. Item 3 is for items of interest to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on something that's not on our agenda this evening? Please be advised that the Planning Commission cannot take action on it. Thank you. Item 4, communications to staff. Do we have any communications?
We do not.
Thank you very much. And we have item 5, presentations and workshops. I believe we have none this evening. So then number 6, environmental assessment / public hearings. We have 6.1 at 140 Forney Road. This is a site plan review, 9911, for a major change in conditional use permit 0303 regarding landscape amendments for Thompson's Toyota dealership. Andrew, I believe you have the staff report.
I do, and attachment A of your report contains the applicant's description. Mr. Thompson is in the audience this evening. And his description describes not only the request, but he did provide landscape plan and irrigation plan showing the changes that are proposed out along the Forney Road frontage of the dealership. And this request is before the commission because changes in landscaping that do not clearly fit into under our code as a major change or a minor change classification under section 1049 P as in Paul or P as in painter are to be classified as a major change. Major changes may only be approved by the Planning Commission. On pages 3 and 4 of staff's report, we provided a background history of the site. The site plan review was approved for the dealership back in 2000. In 2003, staff realized there was a error oversight in terms of administrative requiring a use permit also for this dealership because of the auto sales and service use. Also in November, the applicant, Mr. Thompson, owned a parcel to the south of this dealership where he went through the process of a use permit site plan review for some additional vehicle storage area, and that non-parking inventory area also involves some landscaping. Staff records do not show that work's been completed, and that will become part of the overall landscaping. As if you've read the conditions of approval, we're going to tie in with the maintenance agreement to include the installation of that landscaping. Should you approve tonight's landscaping as well, then all of those would be encumbered under one agreement. That 1 acre piece was adjusted with the dealership as we know it today, which is almost 6.5 acres. That was done with a lot line adjustment approved by the city literally two years ago. In terms of evaluation of the request, staff finds that the landscape modifications with the removal of the turf to provide some stamped concrete areas where the inventory of cars would be placed. As I mentioned in the staff report, and if you visited the site, often their storage vehicles and or their display vehicles are out on the lawn. So this would eliminate that component, but provide a decorative aspect and transition between the site and the street. But also provide the Mr. Thompson and the dealership to display those vehicles for sale. Staff finds that the irrigation and landscape plans meet the city code requirements and general plan goals and policies related to water efficient plant usage and et cetera. Staff recommends the Planning Commission conduct a hearing tonight to hear from members of the public, hear from the applicant, Mr. Thompson, make the findings prepared as attachment B of staff's report, and then approve the request subject to conditions 1 through 6, which are also provided as attachment B. As I mentioned, the conditions include the planning of landscaping approved in 2003 for that 1 acre piece, which is now part of this lot, but not yet installed. And so that concludes my staff report. I know you got all exhibits, but there are the same ones that you received in your packet are on the wall. And once again, Mr. Thompson is in the audience to address you this evening.
Thank you, Andrew. Concise and accurate report as always. Questions of staff by commissioners? If you have a question.
What's the change in coverage from the existing landscape that's turf to the proposed planting area with the stamped concrete?
I'm sorry, I did not produce that calculation.
Okay, yeah, it's probably minimal. I just wondered if you had that information in front of you.
No, I do not.
Commissioner?
Clarification, I bought 5 cars from Thompson's Toyota. Am I allowed to vote, or should I just abstain?
I believe you're allowed to vote unless you have a pending deal.
That's right.
If you have a pending deal, you should disclose your pending deal.
I love my Prius C. You should all get one.
Other questions of staff by commissioners?
I had a question. We considered a change to the auto detailing facility. Is that on a separate parcel from what we're looking at tonight?
Yes, it's on a separate parcel, and that was one of the parcels that was involved with the boundary line adjustment a couple years back. So yes, that's a legally separate lot.
Questions? Chair has a couple of questions for staff. Page 3, under the last bullet, quote, a landscape maintenance agreement has not been recorded. That's not referring to this request, that's referring to prior requests?
That's correct. The 2000 approved landscaping plan, staff did not require a landscape maintenance agreement. When the site went through a reimage a few years ago, and Chair Friend probably remembers that with Toyota did their scheme out front, there was a condition requiring the landscape maintenance agreement, I believe, at that time, and that was not followed up either. So tonight's request will capture all those, and the landscape plans referenced in the agreement will reflect the changes made over the years, including tonight, if the commission moves forward.
Okay, certainly. I would simply request in the record that a request be made of staff to get that resolved so that we have that follow-up. I had a question. First of all, I'm generally positively disposed to the request, but I had a question along the lines of Commissioner Keeney about the percentage, and just by looking at the map and doing a drive-by, it's not a huge area, but it's also not an insignificant area. Some months ago, or years ago, depending, time flies, we had a presentation here on alternatives to hard surfaces, alternatives to paving. They were permeation, I can't remember the correct term, permeable surfaces, and I'm just wondering was any consideration given to that, and could that not be a consideration? And Mr. Thompson may want to speak to this, and I don't know what options are available. I certainly understand what he's trying to do, and it's fine, but it's more than just the water conservation, right? And it's more than the aesthetics. There are other things that factor in. So we're going to be adding additional asphalt/concrete. We have additional than water runoff, and I'm just wondering if staff considered that. And I don't know that it's cost prohibitive and all that, right, and that's a legitimate reason to not do it, but I hate to see something like this, not even be, the question not even be raised.
Well, categorically, staff did not consult with the applicant on this particular aspect of his submittal. That's not to say that alternatives to flat work, as we call it in the trades. There's nothing compelling in our code that would require an applicant to do that.
Oh, right.
The presentations from a few years back were alternatives that could certainly be used and the city would accept. I think they would certainly could be used in this case because the display areas wouldn't be the driveway usage, right. So we wouldn't have the compaction and requirements for making sure that this thing was durable to handle 20, 15 years worth of pavement life. So that certainly is something that we could talk with the applicant about. But I don't know the costs either. Sure. On how that would compare with the stamped concrete. Okay.
But staff could be a resource to Mr. Thompson. And Mr. Thompson, I'm absolutely 100% sensitive to costs and have not looked at this proposal negatively because that wasn't considered. It just seemed like an opportunity that might have been missed. And so maybe if you, I'm simply going to ask, I won't even condition it, or I wouldn't request a condition. I would simply ask that you and staff have a conversation, and maybe there's something you could look at and say, oh yeah, well that would work just as well, and it's not a significantly difference in cost. Boom, we could do that. So,
may I suggest we hear from the applicant?
Yes, sir. I'm just finishing up my questions to staff. Thank you. So, any other questions to staff by commissioners? Thank you. Is asking me to move along, so
okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I did not consider alternative. My place in Tahoe right now is actually, right now as we speak, getting all new inlaid brick walkways, and it's beautiful, and it's the budget I think is about 150 grand, not for me, but for our whole complex in there to put this in walkways. But I didn't even consider it, to be honest with you, at all. The reason I thought about an attractive stamped concrete is parking cars on it, weight, that kind of thing. The actual footprint will actually be less than what is there in grass by a few feet on the frontage. I didn't measure it all out, but you know, the motive, there's several motives. One of them is, you know, our drive-by there is going to be enhanced considerably once we get our off-ramp and all the nice things on Ray Lawyer there. And you know, we've been here 30 years this June, and I've always taken good care of my landscaping. And so we just see it as well, for us, a win-win as far as water usage, mowing lawns, stinky lawnmowers, labor. Finding the labor is a problem these days. There's all kinds of things.
And that's the only turf area that you have on the entire site,
correct.
Is it not?
Yeah. So it just makes a lot of sense right now.
Questions of the applicant by commissioners? Commissioner Keeney?
Several questions about the plant palette that you chose. I also am in favor of this transformation that you're proposing. But as far as water use, some of the plants that are on the palette actually are the same usage as the common turf, fescue, rye mix, moderate water use. And I realize you're reducing the number of plants and the square footage, so your gallons per day would go down. But in addition to the water use, that's I think it's negligible considering what you're proposing, but would you be willing to consider some other substitutes for a few of the plants in the palette?
Absolutely. Teresa couldn't make it, my landscape architect.
I realize that some of these decisions, you're behind and you understand exactly. And I think it's what's proposed is going to be really lovely, but right. In particular, the the Phelan Blue Deodar Cedar. That's actually a kind of a moderate water use plant, and I realize that it's going to be a specimen. You only are calling for 4 of them, but the reason I'm concerned about that is given the aspect of that property, it's right there, full sun all day, and a lot of wind exposure. I have one of those cedars in my own yard. They're beautiful, but mine's kind of protected, and I make sure I watch it carefully, make sure it gets plenty of water. I just ask that perhaps you work with staff or work with your landscaper maybe to come up with another mounting habit that gets the look that you're wanting, but maybe something that is. Well, there's no guarantee of success, but you see where I'm going with that. Maybe something that might tolerate those harsh conditions over there.
Yes.
So there's the deodar cedar, the feather reed grass. That actually is kind of a high water use plant, and your landscaper is only calling for a few of them over on the east side, and perhaps there could be something. The other thing I noticed, I'm not really sure that they're. It's grouped with juniper. Since it needs more water to succeed, juniper doesn't. Maybe there's a substitute that would get that same look that your landscaper is, and you are striving for, but they're more compatible water use, or again, just more successful. And the other thing, well, the miscanthus, the maidengrass, again, a moderate water use, but the fact that they're discrete plants, I don't think it's really going to impact your overall, gallons per day. But that third plant, I would appreciate, you maybe considering something that gets you that look, but is more in the low, or maybe even, no water after some point. I realize you're not looking for a xeriscape, you're looking for low water use, and I appreciate that. For a business like that, you need something that kind of looks a little lush. Xeriscapes aren't everybody's thing, but just those things I would appreciate you working with your landscaper. And I also, just to finish my thoughts, and I'll turn it over to someone else, I appreciate you bringing up the idea of the permeable pavement. There's porous concrete that can be done structurally sound to park cars on. I realize you're looking for the stamped concrete, and the picture you showed looks really nice and clean. It has that nice edge that you can get. But like we said before, if you can use something that is permeable, because given the slope of that lot, it's not going to affect overall runoff, but we're looking to try and transform things. The look you're going for is more water efficient, so maybe if we can pull in a porous paver that you like, again, that's just something that then all of a sudden we've really got a great example. It's high visibility, and people will see that, and if it's a success, then it might get replicated in our community. Thank you.
You give me all your recommendations, and I'll run them by.
I can write them all down. I realize I had a lot.
If you were talking to me about cars, I could talk right back to you.
Okay, certainly. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner List, no question?
Oh,
Briefly.
My comment was that I felt like you were asking the staff a question that really could be answered better by the applicant. That was all. I apologize. I didn't mean to jump on you.
I plan to jaw on a whole lot later. Any other questions of the applicant? Mr. Thompson, thank you very much. You got any other brand new turbo Regals in your lineup?
Not yet.
Not yet, huh? I was at the second largest turbo Buick car show in the nation this weekend.
Really?
The mid-'80s cars.
Yeah.
I still have one of those.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous cars.
Hang on to it.
I plan to. Anybody else in the audience wishes to address the commission on this item?
Chris Payne, Diamond Springs, and I've also purchased a couple of Jeeps from him. So I might have a conflict also. I think everybody's purchased at least one vehicle from you. I'm looking at the frontage on Google Earth on my smartphone, and I noted that this site has gone through remodeling before. I mean, this isn't the first time that work has been done on this frontage. The picture that I'm looking at that Google did looks very, very nice. I mean, the the landscaping is held up. It's got color. It's got texture. It's got the look that I think certainly we've all appreciated. So you ought to get some kudos for what you've already done out there. I also noted that there is two lawn sections. One is the primary, and another one is the secondary. The secondary being to the east of the monument sign. And in this picture, there's no cars parked there, meaning the lawn is without cars. I guess a question would be, if I have a picture here of Google when they went by, supposedly random, and there's no cars parked on the lawn, and now you guys are proposing through this action to park cars there, I guess more readily, or more I guess on a day-to-day basis, versus what I see here is maybe a sale would happen, and then they would bring the cars closer to the sidewalk with balloons and other things that would kind of show more attention to it. So I guess my question is that the case? Is it a case now where by your action there'll be more cars closer to the street more often versus the way it might have been in terms of operations? And that's my question. Again, if it was me, I wouldn't even spend any money. He's got a great look to it already, so why spend any money? But certainly you got to keep changes, huh? Okay, so that's my question. Is how often has he been putting cars on the lawn versus now we're going to have cars on this new surface? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to comment? That's up to you.
I don't have to if you don't want to. No, I would just want to, whenever Google flew by that day, 99% of the time when there's display out there, it's on both sides of the lawn. And that's why I'm proposing what we're proposing. And you're right, sometimes we do have sales, and then most of the time it's just display.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Now that we've opened the can of worms, I just had one question. Are you going to grade the way the cars are now? They kind of, they're pointed downhill toward the road. I guess you're going to have to grade a little bit to level that out to create the concrete.
The idea behind the look was the blue stone on the edge to enhance the look of what you're looking at. In other words, you're not just looking at the car. You're looking at from where the landscape starts up to the blue stone, and then the actual concrete you won't even see unless you're standing up there on the concrete, which will look very nice. And then the sign that's there now, the monument sign, will have a planter around it. So there's landscaping has been brought from, around up into that spot too. I think it'll look pretty.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to commissioners for discussion and possible action. Based on this, I do want to ask the question to staff. I think I know the answer. But there is nothing either in the existing conditional use permit, the requested, or city regulations that prohibit or otherwise control the use of this area for the parking of vehicles. There's nothing we have to be concerned with, I'm presuming.
If I understand your question, no. This request actually makes, from staff's perspective, by not parking on landscaping that was approved, this is a solution that, yes, provides additional landscaping where there was turf before, and parking of vehicles will no longer be on landscape plants. They'll be parked on the flat work. That's kind of a roundabout answer, but
okay.
Unless the
I think
director
the first part of the answer was most important. I think it was a no.
I'll add some additional comments to that. We did internally among staff did discuss in the past the use of landscape areas for parking. So typically speaking, one is not the same. In other words, landscaping is landscaping, and areas for display of merchandise, in this case automobiles, should be separate from the landscaping. So for whatever reason, there was never, when we researched it, there was not a condition that really clearly said that you couldn't do that, but I think typically you don't allow that. And so in some discussions that I had with the landscape architect on this plan, clearly they wanted to create an area for the display of certain vehicles within the area that's incorporated sort of within the landscaping, but they're not one the same. So in other words, you have landscape areas that is distinctly differentiated from automobile display areas. And I think this satisfies staff. It's good for the applicant. I think the vehicles will be well accented on here. Instead of what you saw before, you know, they had to drive out on the lawn and probably had to prep the lawn every so often to keep it looking nice and all of that. But just in general, typically, no, you don't see landscape areas as an area for display of merchandise or automobiles for this matter.
Thank you, Pierre. Okay, we have a request before us, discussion and possible action. The chair would certainly entertain a motion. The chair is personally favorable to the request.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the draft findings and the suggested conditions of approval with the changes that I discussed earlier. And also that I think the group is curious about the possibility of a porous pavement, changing out the deodar cedar, and consider changing out feather reed grass and maidenhair grass from the plant palette. So that would be my motion.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Great, and then a friendly amendment that you adopt the staff report as part of the public record?
Right.
I think
the staff
you
report.
meant that.
I implied that looking at the draft findings,
There we
but
go.
you're right. Yes, adopt the staff report as part of the record. Yes.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional discussion by commissioners? Roll call vote, please.
Member Raines. Member Lepper.
Yes.
Chair Friend.
Yes.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Yes.
Member List.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. I'll bring that Buick by as soon as it's running. Working on it tomorrow. Yes, or Andrew will, I think, and just plans and maybe some discussion on the porousness. Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, item 6.2, the zone change. If I understand correctly, staff is going to request that item be continued off calendar. Do I need to announce it by?
Yes, technically it's on the agenda
All right.
because it was publicly noticed. So
Yeah, so item 6.2 is a zone change in 1903, amendments to Title 10 zoning of the Placerville City Code regarding exceptions from historic district review under Chapter 4, Section 9 and 10. And I believe that the city is the applicant and is going to request continuance off calendar until such time as you're ready to present it.
That's correct.
Okay, so no further action is required by this body on that. Number 7, continued items. We have no continued items in the last meeting. That brings us to new business. The first item, I'm very happy to announce the election of officers for 2019, and the chair will entertain nominations for chair and vice chair, and the chair's name may not appear in either one of those.
I would like to nominate Member Friend as our chair for the next year.
Mr. Friend, the chair would respectfully decline, only because I've been chair for a very long time, and I think it's really important for other members to serve as the chair.
You have a good leadership style.
I'm going to start jawing. I would really like to see somebody else step into that. It's not that hard. Trust me. Please. Oh, Lord.
No second.
I didn't hear the first.
Oh,
What was the motion?
He nominated Nicole as the
Oh, okay.
chair.
I just didn't hear it.
Michael's inclined to do it. He'd like to have
And Michael declined too?
Only because I've been chair many times and for so long, and I just think it's important for other members to move
So
up.
we need a motion
I-
for new members.
So that
I'm going to say that
motion
failed. I
died
think that
as
fails
a
for lack of a second.
lack of a second.
So I'm going to nominate Commissioner Keeney for the position of chair. And I have great confidence.
I second that.
I move the nominations for chair be closed. Need a second for that?
Second.
All in favor of closing the nominations for chair?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Terrific. And we give a nomination for vice chair, please.
I would like to nominate Mr. Liss.
Mr. Liss, that's fantastic. All in favor of Mr. Liss as vice chair?
You're not the vice chair.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Move that the nominations be closed. You now have a new slate. Yes, sir.
For the record, who seconded the nomination for vice chair?
For vice chair, I
Oh,
believe
for vice chair. Oh,
Commissioner Raines made the motion. I
Now
Second.
you know why
think
we're
we had a dueling second.
Either
so-
way. Yeah, go for it. It's
Okay.
yours.
Go on the record.
Which one? Do I flip a coin? Okay. Keen.
Terrific. That's good to have to be done. And thank you.
It's
I
good to see you.
appreciate the support. I really do. If we could then move on to item.
point of order.
Yes, sir.
Don't we need to vote on the,
I thought we did. Oh, if we did not, all in favor of the nomination of vice chair as presented, say aye.
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 Opposition? You're going to make a great vice chair, sir.
Yes, you will.
but also did we vote on the chair?
I believe we did. I'm reasonably certain we did.
Okay?
Nice try. All right, then item 8.2, Planning Commission bylaws. And I don't know if members have, any members have comments on the bylaws. The chair actually, despite all the years of having seen these, I have one minor suggestion, two minor suggestions actually. Under Article 5 Officers, item B. It says the chair and vice chair shall be elected for a one-year term, and it says from the voting members. For some reason, I would say by the voting members. There could be a special way we're supposed to write that, but if not, I would change from to by. And then by the voting members of the commission at the first regular meeting on or after March 1st, or the first regular meeting after the appointment of the new planning commissioners, then I would add right after that, subject to section 7 parentheses G, which talks about the 5 members being present. Because it was interesting, I was reading through this today, and I was going, okay, well, the officers are elected here. I said, well, why are we all hung up on having to have 5 people? It doesn't talk about it right here. It's not required. It wasn't until you get to the next page under 7G that you have to have the 5 members. So I would simply reference that section back up under 5B. Don't have to change 7G, you can just reference it.
That's D as in dog.
No, G as in George. 7G says there must be 5 members present to vote on election of officers and to repeal, amend, or add to the bylaws.
Yes,
And
but
so-
you want to reference under D as in dog?
No, I want to reference under B as in boy. I think.
B as in boy. okay.
Yeah. Right after appointment of new planning commissioners, I would say subject to section 7G. And then a question that I had, it was just a curious question. Article 9 talks about the order of business, which is very good. I think it helps anybody. The call to order, because we have B, which says call to order and pledge of allegiance. Then we get D, election of chair pro tem in the event of absence or inability to act by chair and vice chair. Who has in the event of absence or inability of chair and vice chair, who has the authority to call to order?
I think any member of the quorum,
Okay.
having seen that the chair and vice chair are not present, they can initiate the start of the meeting, and that should be one of the first things that's done, so that person can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the only question I would have on that, if that's the answer, do we need to somehow mention that somewhere? And probably it would be, if we did, it would be under the quorum section. All right, where's quorum section? It's in here somewhere. never ever thought I'd have a comment on these.
Yeah. Yeah, after discussing it with Pierre, with the word election, it kind of denotes that that's the action that needs to be done, is an election amongst the members present to determine who is going to be chair pro tem.
Yes, I have no issue with D. My question is with B. Who has the authority to call to order and pledge of allegiance in the event? Let's suppose you got 3 members that show up, none of which are the chair or vice chair, right? So who has the authority to call the meeting to order the pledge? That was simply my question.
Then a suggestion might be, see, since these are your bylaws.
They're not mine. I didn't write them.
They weren't generated by staff.
I got
so a suggestion might be that the first thing that is done then is to, yes, call the meeting to order. Well, you have to do that. There has to, somebody has to raise their hand and say, thank you for coming. You're here.
I have.
What I was thinking is the election, if that were to occur. Well, now that I think about it, the roll call, you actually need to have a roll call to determine whether or not you have.
I think a simple suggestion is,
I don't know,
call to order and pledge of allegiance by chair or vice chair or any member of the quorum in the absence of the chair or vice chair, because that's really what we're talking. That's all I'm talking about. It just seemed like it was kind of hanging there. If the chair and the vice chair aren't there, somebody's got to call to order, but there's nowhere in there that says gives that authority to anybody. That's all I was suggesting. It's like, other than that, these bylaws are perfect.
It kind of reminds me of the sit or die moment with the city council, when there is no mayor and vice mayor, and it's the city manager that then takes over, actually calls the meeting to order, and then takes the first motion to elect the chair. And once the chair is elected, then the chair takes over.
So by staff.
So it could be by staff.
You know what? I like that. And since the city council is already doing it that way, why don't you just set it up?
I can think of some times when we didn't have a quorum, and I said something. In the staff is noticing the absence of a quorum in which to hold a meeting. And I'm looking in the camera, and we can hold no action tonight, and that's it. That's all you can really do.
Okay.
So yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
I think that's great, Pierre. That really solves it. Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else. If anybody else has anything to add, okay. Terrific. And then these will come back at our next meeting, hopefully for adoption. That brings us to item 9, matters from commissioners and staff. As much as I'd like to jaw on, I have nothing to add.
I just want a clarification that we'll look at the revised proposed bylaws after staff prepares them before we can, as opposed to just.
I believe that was the direction.
Okay, so that's.
We'll come back and vote on them. Yeah.
With the caveat that all 5 of you need to be here.
Absolutely.
To
That's
vote
right.
on.
Could be next year.
Nothing's set in stone.
Moment of levity tonight.
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge that Commissioner Raines was recognized by the county for her volunteer work. I don't know if everyone got the notice. Something pleasant showed up in my email inbox, and I just wanted to lend my congratulations and thanks for helping our community. I realize you were a runner-up, but I'm sure your work is greatly appreciated, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Well, you can turn 77 and live here 45 years, and we'll nominate you too.
No, I'm happy right here on the Planning Commission, and you keep
Thank
on.
you, Chris. That was very kind of you.
In my last action as chair, though, I need to implore you to make sure that you turn on your microphone button each and every time you speak.
Even if it's a casual conversation?
Yes, because nobody can hear anything.
Correct.
So please do that, and you're gonna have to keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
I know.
No, thank you.
Button
It comes with practice. It comes with practice.
There you go. We're on a roll.
There you go.
Anyone else? Staff report?
Yeah, staff has some housekeeping. Your next meeting scheduled is the 18th That will not be held. We do not have a quorum. By the end of the week, however, I just want to let you know that we try as best we can. When an applicant submits applications, we want to get them in front of you all as soon as we possibly can. There is a strong possibility that we will have two public hearing items for July 2nd.
Andrew, you said we're not having a meeting on the 18th because we won't have a quorum?
Correct.
Okay, fair enough.
But the two items that we have had submitted, it will be likely that we will deem them complete, and then they will be ready for staff prep for, staff reports and exhibits and things. So, do any of you at this particular moment, will you be absent on the 2nd?
I don't dare.
I plan to be here.
Thank you. That's all I've got. Director Rivas, do you have any announcements? Okay.
Brewfest is on June 22nd.
We may have a quorum.
Well, with given that, no other business, and the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Good night.